सही है।
Today. So let's get some more perspective on how trade has been panning out. Our Balakrishna, Executive Director of Centrum Capital, now joins us. Thanks for joining in. What is your sense currently? We have sort of got wedged into a range, but would you read too much into these movements we've been seeing intraday? Because it's not really backed by pretty significant volumes.
Well, I think I view it this way. I think at this stage, I think all of us in the securities industries, the analysts, the commentators, I think we are outnumbering the investors. So basically it's lack of interest. So what happens is that whenever there is some kind of activity, it tends to be one-sided. So if there is buyers, they dominate and they pull the whole thing up. Same way, I think when selling comes, it gets one-sided again. So this is a market, and everywhere there is a kind of a gloom about the future, there's so much uncertainty. I think Indian companies are fairly well placed. But I must caution you that what we are going to see is a correction of profits. It simply means that companies which were earning two-digit PAT margins, which were very abnormal, I think are going to come back to single digits, and that will probably be reflected over the next 3-4 quarters. So what you mean is we are going to end up in a kind of a trading range which could be a big band between, let's say, 8,000 and 12,000. I think we'll have to wait the whole 4 to 5 quarters out before we can call that yes, the trend has resumed.
Bala, we were speaking to a Merrill Lynch analyst earlier today, and he was looking at a 20% fall in earnings in 2009 across Asia, India included. Would you go that far?
I think so, because see, Lata, you look at it, like for example, if you take cement, they were making so much money that in 3 years you are recovering the cost of a plant. You look at an obscene extreme example like real estate, even in a bad quarter they had 50% PAT to sales. Or you take any other industry, steel or anything, the kind of profitability which you saw was very, very abnormal thanks to a supply crunch and a demand overkill. So you're seeing a kind of a correction. It means that even if companies come back to a profitability which is reasonable, even at 50% drop, Indian companies would still be among the most profitable across the globe. So I think the number is 20-10, but the trend is there that yes, the cream in the business is vanishing and you are back to your milk business.
So at Centrum, what is the kind of Sensex EPS you're looking at end FY09 and end FY10? And by those valuations, at what levels will you be a buyer?
See, I would say that Sensex we are looking at around 900 to 950 for this year, and kind of flattish to a marginally positive over the next year. But what we are also looking at is a kind of a broad trading range which could extend between the numbers I mentioned earlier, 8 to about 12,000. But we also say that this is a great time for stock picks. Make your wish list of large cap or mid cap, whatever, and put a price target where you think it's a reasonable price. I'm not saying we can call the bottom. At that level, keep buying. I think some of the long only funds have been doing precisely that they've been waiting patiently. If let's say I like a stock at this price, if it comes there I buy it, otherwise I don't buy. And if you're an active trader, maybe the best way is to trade the index rather than specific stocks, because I think that there's a kind of a huge rotation going on between, like yesterday when the China news came, the metals just jumped up. And today they are the ones to give it up as quickly. So you can get whipsawed in if you're playing stocks. Best is to play the bigger index. And if you're talking about a range of 8 to 12,000, we are talking about a 50% return, Lata. Even if you can capture 20-30%, I think that's an extraordinary return in a market, in an economy or an environment of gloom.
All right, Bala, thanks so much for joining us with your perspective. In the meantime, we're still holding that psychologically important mark of 10,000 on the Sensex and 3,000 on the Nifty. So not really breaking that, coming close to the 3,000 mark and bouncing back a week.